Hello friends, this is Wendy with Love and Stampin'. I am so happy that you're here with me today. We are using the Rhino Ready stamp set and the sending dies for, and the layering circle dies for this card. We are making 2 cards today. This video has been sped up to 1.5 times its normal speed just so that I can fit both cards in because it was pretty long. It's still a pretty long video. But I wanted to show you how to make these. So we're starting out with basic gray cardstock as our base on a regular A2 size card. And then I've got a piece of old olive cardstock here that's cut at 3/4 of an inch by 5.5. And as you can see, I'm having to trim up more and more on that. And then I'm just gonna add my adhesive. I'm using Stampin' Seal Plus and then gluing that down. And then we're going to use that Like an Animal designer series paper. Now I have all of the measurements for both of these cards over on my blog. It's not in a printable project sheet. I just listed the measurements under the cards. Let me know if you would prefer that they be in a project sheet. If you drop me a comment below and you want it in a project sheet, I can go back and do that. But these cards are fairly straightforward and simple, so I really didn't see a necessity in having to make a project sheet for them. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of things with this card. This uses the Rhino Ready bundle from Stampin' Up, and I'm using soft suede, which by the way is retiring, and old olive for the tree. I wanted the trees to be peeking out behind these circles just to give this card a little something extra. Now let's talk about where I got this design from. There is a blog called Mojo Monday. I have followed Mojo Monday since I was a teeny tiny baby crafter, and I used to do their card sketches all of the time. And so I just got a little nostalgic this month, and you'll notice that in my creative inspiration calendar, there is a card sketch every Saturday from Mojo Monday. So I'm using a Mojo Monday card sketch to create these cards for you today. And I made 2 different cards because I really wanted you to see that, you know, it's very easy, I think, for us to get a little bit stuck in our thinking patterns of, you know, oh, well, I have to do this certain thing or I have to do that certain thing if you're looking at a card sketch. So I'm going to share a few tips with you today on using card sketches. Okay, tip number 1 is to use sketches as a loose pattern for your card. So if you go to Pinterest and type in the words card sketch ideas, you are going to be inundated with ideas for card sketches. And all a card sketch is a pattern. So you could think of it as like sewing or a recipe like for baking. It's just, here are the ingredients. Here is the concept. And then from that, you can adapt and change. So for example, this particular card sketch just I'm gonna pop it on the screen right here so that you can see the original sketch. So this card sketch was my original inspiration, and I really love it. But as you can see, mine looks different. I'm adding these trees, which is an element that's not in the card sketch, but I wanted to add a little bit more interest to the sketch and step it up a little. So this is just an example of how you can make things a little bit more your own and use a card sketch as a loose idea for making a card. It's a great way to jumpstart your creative mojo. Okay, tip number 2 is start with basic shapes and then expand into other shapes. So again, you're kind of seeing that here with this example. I've got my basic shapes, which are the circles, the squares, the rectangles. So I'm following that card sketch basically, but then I've come in and added my own. Now, let's say you are looking at this card sketch and you want to use squares or ovals in place of where the circles are. do it. Go for it. Sometimes I think we have to be given permission to unleash our creative license. Like we are one of the things that I offer every quarter basically is a paper party retreat. This is something that I do for my customers, and anybody's welcome to participate, but I do have a limit on how many can attend. So usually it gets filled up before I do very much advertising. And a paper party is coming, by the way, because we have a new catalog dropping. So stay tuned for that info. In fact, I'll drop a link below the video here in the description so that if you want to sign up to get information about the paper party, you can. But anyway, so when I do my paper parties, a lot of people will say, do I have to, and I always think this is funny, do I have to make the cards like you're making them? And I always kind of chuckle at this because I think, well, first of all, what if you, like, okay, let's say I said, yes, you have to make them exactly like I'm making them. Do you think that I'm going to send the police to your house and be like, she did not make that card the way I told her? So I always kind of chuckle because I think we don't have to do the things that, I don't know. It's just funny to me that grown people would ask permission to be creative. So this is me telling you, please be creative. Even if attend my paper party, don't attend my paper party, be creative. You know, I always say in my paper party that the card sketch ideas and the cards that we provide, the kits, they're just a jumping off place. That's all they're meant to be. They're just meant to be a jumping off place for your creativity to run wild. So if you want to use different designer series papers than we use, different shapes, different elements, by all means, have at it. Like, we do not mind at all whatsoever. So here, I'm going to go to the card really quick and share with you about the coloring of this rhino. I decided to color this rhino gray. Obviously, rhinoceroses are gray, as far as I know. I don't know, unless it's an albino rhino. That rhymes. That's my joke for the day. Write it down. Albino rhino. Anyways, so I'm starting with my lightest color, working to my darkest, going back to my lightest, because I am using Copic markers for this. Wendy, why? Why wouldn't you use Stampin' Blends for this? Well, because I wanted this specific color of gray. So this is a N1, let me get it right. I think it's an N1, N3, N1, N4, something. They're N's, the N group of the Copics. And it's not a gray that we have. This is like, they call it a neutral gray. And I just really liked it and I wanted to use it. And additionally, I get more range of blend with Copic markers, okay? So if I want to color something really simple and quick, I use my Stampin' Blends. If I want more range in my coloring, like more shading, then I use Copic markers. And I just love them. I absolutely love them. These markers sat in my craft room for years without being touched, and they did not dry out. Look at them. I'm still able to use them. I have a couple that have gone dry, but for the most part, they haven't dried out. Now, as I've mentioned in previous videos, and I will mention it here, if you choose to use Copic markers, there is a major learning curve because they are not super simple to use. They have a number coding system, and if you don't take the time to learn that, you're not going to get your desired results. So it's just, I'm just letting you know. If you want simple, basic coloring, stick with Stampin' Blend markers. They will not steer you wrong. There are more coming out. There are some retiring. So soft suede is one of the colors I mentioned earlier that's retiring. I do have a video that I shared all of the colors that are retiring. The Fresh Freesia is sticking around, which is an in color, and they're moving it into our regular color family, which I'm happy about. I really like Fresh Freesia. And yeah, soft suede's retiring, Pacific Point. There's a whole bunch of colors. So grab them now. I've already had several people place orders for retiring colors, ink refills, ink pads, cardstocks, stuff like that, so that they're stocked up and they will basically, if you get an ink pad and a refill, you pretty much have it for a lifetime. So I highly encourage you to grab those now. Now, there's been some confusion, and I did a video earlier this week trying to clear it up, but I want to make sure it's clear. The retiring product list has launched. So we know what is retiring. I shared that in a video. The sale for the retiring products starts April 4th. Okay? So 2 different time frames. But here's my suggestion. The day you're watching this, it's April 1st. If there are products from Stampin' Up! That you want that are retiring, even if they're going to be on sale, but you really, really want them, I would go ahead and buy them now. Why? Why would you do that? Because they're going to probably sell out. Because if you really want them and really like them, other people are probably going to really want them and really like them. So that's just my advice. Take it for what you will. I just wanted to share. Okay. We got this rhino all colored in, and he's just looking so stinking cute and adorable. And then I am going to pop him up on this card base, and then we're going to add our sentiment, and this card will pretty much be done. I love it. I love how it turned out. I think it's really super cute and super simple. And we're going to move on to more tips for our card sketches. So first tip was to use the sketch as a loose pattern for your card. Second tip was to start with basic shapes, but expand into other shapes for your card. The third tip I have for you is to use pattern paper to create interest, as I have done here. So this really minimized my, let's see, what's the word? Let me think. This really minimized me having to come up with some fun idea for the background. It's a rhinoceros. So in my head, that's like obviously Africa / safari. So I went with pattern paper from Like an Animal. Here I'm giving him just a little shadow under his hiney because it looks weird, like he's just floating if you don't put something there. So adding those animal prints just kind of pulls the whole card together. So use pattern paper when you're kind of maybe at a loss for what else to use, or for adding that added little bit of interest, like, oh, look at that fun pattern paper. But as you can see here, it is covered up in the background quite a bit. So it's not jumping out at you in a way that's like, oh my gosh, that's so much pattern paper. Does that make sense? I also used muted colors that kind of matched the basic gray background and the white, and those things also help to kind of push back those pattern papers and lets that rhino in those trees still be the standout of the card. Okay, now we're going to move on to card number 2. For this, we're using Taco Fiesta, literally one of my favorite stamp sets probably ever. This was created by Erica Serwin, or inspired by, I should say. I'm not sure if the $1 Million Achievers with Stampin' Up! Actually create the stamp sets, or if they just kind of inspire them by giving ideas. I don't really know how it works, but I'm just sharing with you. It was done by her. Okay, so here is another tip. Background stamp some of your layers of cardstock to create interest or texture. Alternatively, you could emboss them. So here I'm using the little avocado. This stamp set's fun because it has a whole bunch of little images. I cannot express to you how much I wish there were dies for this. There are not, and it makes my heart sad. But I really wish there were. So here I'm background stamping in Parakeet Party, the avocado, all over. And you're going to see I make a change. I decide that it's too much avocado going on, okay? And I make a little change here in a minute. But we're going to stamp our sentiment down at the bottom because I already had kind of laid this out, so I kind of knew where everything was going to go. That's another thing you can do. That's a extra tip. kind of lay things out. Use your papers, lay things out, kind of get a vibe for where things are going to go, and then you can just sit and assemble your card. If you're mass producing, that is really great because it gives you the ability to just put together all kinds of stuff and then mass produce, cut a bunch of stuff and mass produce it all at once. This card is my March thank you card for my customers. So those of you who placed an order with me in the month of March, before March 27th, you are going to get this card in the mail from me. If I should remedy that. You will get this card if your order was less than $50, because for those who placed a $50 order or more, they got card kits. They got like a whole big shebang. So here we're using Poppy Parade, by the way. So we're using Poppy Parade, Tempting Turquoise, Tahitian Tide, and Parakeet Party. So the measurements for the cardstocks that I've used here are actually a little different than the measurements that I used on the other card. So make sure you check that out over on my blog. Here you can see this is where I changed my mind. I decided I wanted cacti, instead of avocados, because I felt like the avocados on top of the avocados was just too much. So I grabbed my cactus and stamped him, and I just love how that looks. Super cute. And then we're just going to go and add all of our layers together and layer them up and color our little piñata and add a couple other cute little elements on our way as well. So these are cut a little smaller than the other one. The Poppy Parade is also cut out of stylish shapes dies instead of the layering circles, as is the little white piece that we stamped on. And then the little strip of Poppy Parade is thinner. So this is what I'm talking about when I say, be creative, use your own ideas, think about ways you can do things a little out of the box. Here's your last tip. Don't be afraid to change the sketch or add elements that aren't necessarily in the sketch. So for example, and I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. On my last card, I added embellishments. And on this card, I am going to add, first of all, it doesn't look just like the sketch because I didn't use a scallop circle underneath. And secondly, okay, really quick to the card. See here where I'm using Stampin' Blends now for this card? It's because these are teeny tiny little areas, and Stampin' Blends have a nice little bullet point tip, and it's easy to get in there with them. So it's just making life easier to just use these. And it's such a small space. I'm not really interested in shading. Okay. I know my friend Kelly would shade those little spots. Wendy does not mess with it. I'm not doing it. So, to each their own. Everybody's different and it's okay. Like, we can all do whatever we want to do. And then for my piñata, I just decided to color him in gray granite, truthfully, because I just didn't know what color to put him. I didn't want to distract, I guess, from the bright, bold colors that we used. And I was afraid if I added another color element here to the piñata guy, that it would just kind of like mess things up. So I just went with gray granite. Now, that is simply because I struggle a little bit with putting color together. So those of you who have been here long enough, you already know that about me. It's something I've always struggled with a little bit. I'm much better at it now than I used to be, because like with anything, as we practice, we get better at it. And I got better and better and better, and I'm pretty good at it now. But in situations like this, I feel like somebody who is more experienced with colors would have maybe picked something different for the body of this little piñata guy. And I just stuck with gray, because I was like, well, that's safe. It's neutral. Okay, so here I just had to color this little chili pepper. I could not help myself. I'm drying my ink because I have been using Hero Arts Intensified Black ink. It's good for watercoloring and alcohol safe, but it does take a few seconds to dry. I don't love that, but I think it's because it's a hybrid ink. It's just a little bit more finicky with the drying process. So you just have to give it like an extra second, where with Memento Tuxedo Black ink, it's dry immediately. So you make up your mind on what you prefer to use. I'm still making up mine. I don't 100% know. I think there's probably room for both. So anyway, just thought I'd share that tidbit. So here I'm coloring the pepper in Poppy Parade, and then the top of it in Parakeet Party. And then, truth be told, my original idea was for this little pepper to go to the top right of this piñata. But then the fact that the pepper wrapped inwards the way it does, I felt like it just didn't look right there. And so I put it down at the bottom. So then I was like, well, now I need something at the top. So we end up stamping the sombrero and coloring it. And that is what card making is all about, my friends. You just have to kind of try things. You got to try different things. You got to be willing to, make some changes and go with the flow if you're being creative. And I am probably your most uncreative, creative person. Does that make sense? See, I didn't like how that looked. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, I really need help getting going sometimes. And once I get going, I'm pretty good, but I really do need that little extra encouragement sometimes. So I hope this video has been encouraging to you. For story time, we only have a few minutes left. All I'm going to say to you for story time is we have pigs. We have pigs, Petunia and Scooby. Petunia and Scooby have had a rough go at the beginning of their experience with the Cranfords because it has been nothing but rain and cold. Now, both pigs are healthy. They're doing well. My daughter is raising them for FFA. They are fair market pigs, which means they will be put in the auction at the fair to be sold for meat. So they are meat pigs. Ask me how I feel about raising animals for food. I don't mind it. Okay. So, it doesn't bother me, and I realize that that's where our food source comes from. I would rather raise my own food than buy it at the grocery store, truth be told. We may end up buying one of the pigs back for our own consumption. We will see. So anyway, that's what's happening in the Cranford household this week. We got pigs. The weather's gross still. I just don't understand when it's going to change, and it's driving me nuts. So here I'm just fussy cutting out this little sombrero, and I really debated if I should put it on top of the little piñata head or put it somewhere else on the card. I do feel like maybe this card could have used one more element, but at the end of the day, I was happy with it. It was fine how it was, and I wasn't going to add any more bits and pieces. We probably won't do all this little fussy cutting for the thank you cards. It's probably just going to be the piñata guy stamped with a few embellishments. But for you here on my YouTube, my friends on YouTube, I did extra little bits and pieces. So there it is. All right, so that card is finished. And I lied. I'm going to use these. Okay, so these are retiring as well. They're so cute. They are just so cute. So there's, and I realized after I put these down that it looks like he's pooping little, what are these? What color are these? Tahitian tied dots. So, I pulled it out because I was like, okay, well, maybe let's not have the piñata pooping things. And I fixed it. But anyway, super cute card. I really love how it came together. I love all the bright colors. You can see more photos over on my blog, and you can get all the measurements for these cards over on my blog. There is a link in the description below this video, and I hope you have had a good time hanging out with me on your Saturday, friends, if you're watching this when it releases. And now we can just mark off March thank yous. So one of these cards is for a family member that's struggling. The other card is for my March thank yous. And ta-da, we are finished. Shop with me at shoploveandstampin.com if you want any of these products or any of the retiring products. There is a host code below this video that you can use. If you've watched this far, you're quite the trooper, and we are probably bestest of friends. I will catch you in the very next video. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.